Okay, um, this is post-lunch, but I'm going to attempt to keep you awake. This is the title of the next book I'm writing. It's called Beyond Jugaad. I'm writing it with my father. And the basic idea is this. See, when you think of Jugaad, you basically think of making up stuff in the last minute, improvising, and that's good. But I'd like to suggest something else. I'd like to suggest design thinking. It's really come from Stanford, and I have found in my life, this year alone, I've used it to lose weight. So you can guess what I looked like before this, right? I've used it to turn around a couple of projects. I've used it to work with unemployed people. I've used it to flip a classroom. So when I start this talk, I really want to start from a different place. My intention is not so much to impress you with some fancy stuff. My intention is that you would be sitting in that seat thinking about one thing, something that bugs you, something that inspires you, an opportunity you want to take on, anything. One thing at the back of your mind that if you took hold of and actually delivered would really make a difference to your 2012. Okay? So, design thinking based on who you talk to, they'll say either it's very old or very new, but I prefer the term very useful. Okay? And I want to do two things in my talk. The first thing is I want to share with you the Alchemy story. Alchemy is basically working with educated, unemployed people who are actually having English as a barrier to getting their job. And then I want to invite you to apply design thinking to your life, any issue. All right, why design thinking? I like that word, creative confidence. Okay, creative confidence in my head is two simple things. The first one is a lot of us don't know what to do. There are plenty of opportunities, there are plenty of things that bug us, but we don't know what to do. And then once we're clear about what to do, we are not really sure about how to go about doing it. And I think design thinking presents some interesting ideas for both those things. Okay, just a quick sort of backup. I've been involved with student movements, youth organizations, social organizations now for almost a decade. And in 2008, towards the end, I was teaching a group of students about design thinking, and we were experimenting with that. And out of that, a group decided to apply design thinking to employability. Fast forward to today, 820 people have got jobs. And when we check class, on average, the incomes of those families have increased by about 58%. But that's sort of a big picture. I'd like to share with you, what does that mean? What does a 58% increase in income mean for one of these people? And I want to share with you Aruna's story. So the previous model that we had was we had counselors in placement companies. So somebody would come in, they would try for a job, they wouldn't get in there, then they would try somewhere else, they wouldn't get in there, they would try somewhere else. At some point in time, it would strike them that, hey, I'm not getting a job. And then they would be directed to our counselors. So Aruna was one of those people. She called up Selvi, who was a co-founder of Alchemy, and who led this entire team. And she called up Selvi and she says, ma'am, do you remember me? I met you 3 months ago. I have saved up enough. I'm going to get this job, aren't I? So she says, I meet about 100 people a month. I'm not really sure I remember you, but well, yeah, sure, come over. So anyway, Aruna comes to the office, and she takes out this plastic bag. And she's got coins in them. She's got 10 rupee notes in them. She's got 20 rupee notes in them. And Selvi looks at her and says, it'll be a little easier for me if you bring these as 100 rupee notes. And there's a silence, and then she says, ma'am, I've been stitching clothes for the last 3 months so that I could earn enough to afford to do this program. And these kinds of moments, I don't know if you've ever been on a startup or gone out and done anything outside the usual comfort zone. There are these moments, right, where they just stand out for you and you're just like, wow, I'm so glad I did that. Anyway, Aruna got a job for 8,000 rupees. And when we spoke to her last, Aruna had saved up, done a technical course, and is working with a large software company, earning 19,000 rupees. Now, what I find inspiring is not that Aruna Kumari would have the guts to save up for 3 months to get a job. What I find inspiring is not just that Aruna Kumari would stitch clothes to do that. What I find inspiring is that Aruna Kumari's dad cleans the streets in the Bangalore Municipal Corporation. And as a family, they earn 5,000 rupees. 19,000 rupees may or may not be a lot of amount for you and I, but it's a lot for that family. And to us, those kinds of stories are really the win. But when you hear these stories, you sort of think, oh wow, these guys are so smart, they could do it, but not me. But I want to make the case that you and I can change the world. I want to make a case that you and I get to make a difference, right? And that's the team over there. And I was teaching this design thinking course, and some of them started saying, let's take this course out into the real world. And I'm like, no, this is a good class. Let's sit right in here. But these guys just wouldn't stop. That Mahesh there, and there's a whole bunch of people that Alchemy owes credit to. They decided to step out and start implementing design thinking in the employability space. So if you have that problem in your mind or that opportunity in your mind, here's the first step. You got to immerse yourself into it, right? So a couple of questions that we started asking was, who's hiring? Who are the candidates? What are the problems here? What are the current solutions? And here are some things we found. For example, at that point in time, BPOs had plenty of jobs. Retail companies had plenty of jobs. So it wasn't an issue of jobs. Then when we found out the candidates, we found out that these were typically people who had come from a big town or a village and had come to the city to get a job, usually with money from their dad or their mom for 3 months. And on average, by the time we had met them, they were rejected 5 to 7 times. So what was the problem? There are jobs there. There are people who are desperate for it. Why are they not getting it? And what we found out was there was a whole category of people that were technically qualified but were not good enough in their English to get a job. So we said, okay, English is the issue, right? So as you get into an issue, you'll start narrowing down. What are the barriers? Right? And then when we looked at English programs in the city, we looked at 25 English programs. I still remember we had a wall up there with all the programs and all the benefits each program promised. And none of them promised the thing that mattered, a job. They promised a certification, they promised a fancy something, but they didn't. They promised 60 hours of training. Who wants that? I want a job. So that's when we started immersing ourselves, the need became clear. So for Alchemy's case, it was this. We need to redesign the training process, and at this point in time, it was a wish list. We didn't know how we were going to do it. To improve English enough to get an MNC job, that's a multinational job, it needed to be delivered free to the candidates, and we still didn't know how we were going to do it. And we wanted to do it in 3 weeks or less. Why 3 weeks? It's very simple. They come with only that kind of money. After that, they're in a desperate situation. So in the issue that you're working on, and I hope that whenever this goes live on TED, y'all can watch the video several times. Just pick the area, and as you start immersing yourself, you'll get a wish list. Set of stuff that if you delivered would really, really make this work. Give that project a name. The name we came up with was Go International. And it became kind of a rallying cry. The tip in the need statement is this. Whenever you get a need statement, it will go in the format. We need to redesign this area to deliver these outcomes. And it's perfectly fine if you don't know how you're going to do it. It's important that you get clear on what you need to do. Then is inspiration. I love this. So once you've got your outcomes, right, there are 3 ways that we found useful in going about this. Ask a bunch of what-if questions. What if we did it this way? What if we did it that way? Look at who's solving similar problems exceptionally. And the internet has a ton of stuff, right? They call it Google Mata, right? Then you pick up a bunch of mentors. So when you're working on your issue, it will look something like this. The outcomes, the what-ifs. In our case, we said, to get the kind of engagement, what if it was a game, not training? Who else was solving it exceptionally? We found NLP had some fantastic models on accelerated learning. We found the Stanford Design School had some excellent ideas. And then a whole bunch of mentors helped us. Let me share you a simple example. Rajesh. Rajesh runs a placement company in Bangalore. And I remember sitting with Rajesh, and I was telling him that we're struggling to keep the costs in control. And Rajesh looks at me and says, Akshay, how much do you think this pen costs? And I'm like, I have no idea, maybe 4 or 5 rupees. 2 rupees. So I look at him, trying to wait for the big, punchline. And he says, how big do you think my company is? I said, well, it's a couple of crores at least. He said, yeah. If I can keep my costs on my pens so tightly, what stops a startup like you being disciplined? And straight away, he sent me with my first assignment. Go home, list all your costs, and figure out ways to borrow figure out ways to cut costs, figure out ways, and that's what mentors do, right? So this is the stage where you're sort of figuring out your approach. Oh, I'm clear about what I want. How do I go about doing it? Okay, the third step in the design process is imagine. And this is an example of something we put together. It's a scoreboard. And in the scoreboard, we broadly broke it down into 3 parts. English broke down to grammar, pronunciation, and confidence. Now, just a quick side note on confidence. When we were sitting in interviews, and we sat in at least about 150, 200 interviews, people would get rejected, and we'd ask the HR, why are they getting rejected? Oh, not confident. Oh, yeah, not confident. Makes sense. Not confident. Okay. Not confident. Okay. Not confident. Okay, what is confidence? Okay, we need to get this sorted out. And as we talked to them, we found out that they were not clear. They were able to tell us if he's confident or not, but they didn't tell us how we needed to go about getting that thing done. Through sheer trial and error, we figured out we don't call it confidence anymore, we call it thought flow. And thought flow has 3 elements. Eye contact, high energy, and 45 seconds without going, So when people are at 23 seconds, we tell them, look, you just have so many seconds more to be counted as confident. It gave us a very hands-on view of doing this. And we've done shortcuts like this in all of that. Like in pronunciation, we ask you the question, where are you from? I'm Malayali. And if I was doing the program, I wouldn't learn everything in pronunciation. If you're a Malayali, you surely have a pronunciation issue with A, B, C, of the vowels, right? Or the consonants. So we mapped it based on the regions people. So in each one of these things, I can't go into that. We had a whole bunch of stuff. Now, can you see the thermometer over there? The thermometer is basically, we've invented a system of 300 points, okay? Don't ask me how. It's just sheer numbers of people that we've practiced it through. I'm going to come back to the thermometer later. So, in your area, you've got the need statement, you've got the approach. Now what you need to do is visualize, right? Where are the gaps in my project? What am I not able to do, right? And who could I invite to fill it? See, quite often when we're starting a project, we think we need to get everything done. That's not true. It just needs to get done, right? So a line that we like, it's actually from a book, is don't just be brilliant, borrow it. Borrow ideas, borrow resources, borrow talent, borrow everything you can. Be shameless. When you are standing for something that matters, stand up there and tell them, hey, what are you doing with your time? Come and help me. So visualizing will really help you get the gaps and then who could fill it. The last step in the design process is iteration. And we have 2 parts to this, a challenge list and a rhythm. Now a challenge list is, when we started designing, we would have these things called show and tell every Friday. And we'd have hundreds of ideas. I'm not even joking. You know how it is when you have a team of 20, 30 people. We had hundreds of ideas on how to go about each of these things. So what we decided to do was to prioritize a list of things that needed to get done. Okay, and we ordered it in terms of the highest value. Okay, so if we solved this, this would be worth a lot. If we solved this, so we reordered that list. And then we found that a rhythm was important. When are we going to call each other? When are we going to meet each other? And even if you don't have it fully done, what is the status on it? So rhythm was really key. These are just some elements of our rhythm. Down there, you see those post-it notes. That's a show and tell that happens typically every Friday. Then you see Banu giving out the certificates over there. That we decided that we needed a way to keep our vision going. So what we did was every sort of 45 days, 60 days, we'd get all the people who got jobs, we'd get all the people who supported us into the room, and we would ask the people who supported us to give away those job offers, to give away those things. And it just became an immense celebration of our work. And it would constantly fuel us, particularly, how it is in a startup, high on dreams and energy and low on resources, right? Got to keep things going. And then we found that, we used to keep a milestone, and anytime we delivered a milestone, we used to do some celebrations. That's Mahesh there, who sort of keeps the whole thing going. We found this way of visualizing stuff useful. Whenever you start stuff, something's going to work, and something's going to be not working, and we like the word yet in there so that it's not a statement of resignation. Then there's going to be stuff that's missing, right? Like you're not able to figure out how to get it done. What if is a useful question to ask there. And the last one is what's next. The key in your project is the time cycle between action and reflection. If you're taking a week, get it down to half a week. There are times we've taken it down to a day, and when we were very desperate, we took it down to half days. Like I would get updates every 5 hours. Okay? So just that action reflection. You got to get that time down. Okay, so where are we now? Fast forward to today. In the last 60 days, 62 people got jobs. They got jobs at 10,000 rupees plus. They didn't have to pay for it. The company paid for it. And Alchemy is profitable. See, the thing is, when you and I hear stories like this, I've sat in that seat. We all think, okay, they can do it, or that person can do it. I am too, fill in the blank. Short, thin, long, young, fat, whatever. Right? But I want to suggest that if not us, then who? If not here, then where? If not now, then when? This is our time. Thank you.